Hey gamers, Maniac here with GameAccess.net, doing another Memories of Maniac. To me, this feels like this should not be a memory of Maniac because this is something that has happened since I started the website. But I've been running GameAccess.net for 10 years. And I've been doing this YouTube channel for over 10 years. And this story is at least from 10 years ago, so how times have changed or how times have not changed. But what we're going to be talking about today is Nintendo Zone. And what exactly Nintendo Zone was, what were Nintendo Zone locations, and a couple of other great things for those of you who might remember the Nintendo 3DS platform. A platform that has since been replaced by the Nintendo Switch. But still a great, just a great platform. I loved it. So what do we know about the Nintendo 3DS? It was, of course, a handheld platform. It was a successor to the Nintendo DS. It allowed dual screen portable handheld gaming. And one of those screens, the top screen, was a 3D screen, or could be used as a non-glasses 3D screen, basically. It had some great games for it: Mario Kart 7, Luigi's Mansion 2. A fantastic re-release of the Gen 3 Pokemon games, which I absolutely loved. Pokemon Sun and Moon, Pokemon X and Y. Just a great, just a great platform. And on top of that, some fantastic downloadable titles that unfortunately people cannot get anymore, like Attack of the Friday Monsters. But that's neither here nor there. That's not what you guys are interested in. The Nintendo eShop has long since been shut down, and I'm certain probably at this point those services have been shut down as well. But the majority of the Nintendo 3DS hardware was primarily used by kids. But this was at around a time when there was a big push for online gaming, digital downloads, and game patching, as well as firmware patching. The Nintendo 3DS, like the Nintendo DS before it, supported Wi-Fi, and only supported Wi-Fi. There was no cellular modem built into the 3DS. Its competition, the PlayStation Vita, did offer a cellular model, although that wasn't the primary cellular model. That wasn't like the version most people got, although many people did in fact get it. If you were intending to play multiplayer, it was expected that either you would play multiplayer online from home, or you would be playing multiplayer locally between two players that would just be able to communicate to each other directly. But there was a third option. Nintendo cut deals with several major brands, several, that had locations, physical locations, and was trying to invest in a Wi-Fi internet network, basically. Some of those brands included companies that you might be familiar with, such as McDonald's or AT&T and Starbucks. And the idea was that if you had your 3DS on the go, which was perfectly designed, it was designed to be taken on the go. It had an internal step counter. It was designed to swap data around with other 3DS users so you could trade Miis and expand on stuff. So there was a lot of incentive for you to take your 3DS on the go, but you wouldn't be able to get it online on the go unless you were over a friend's house and you knew their Wi-Fi password or something. So Nintendo offered an alternative, and that is that they had put certain protocols into these Wi-Fi transmitters or Wi-Fi hotspots sprinkled all across the US. And these were essentially called Nintendo Zone locations. The side effect was that if you happen to be at a location such as like a McDonald's in 2008, for example, or 2012, you would, as soon as you brought your 3DS into that store, into the restaurant, it would automatically connect to the Wi-Fi and allow you access to Nintendo Zone. Now, what was Nintendo Zone? Well, at first it was a promotional thing. It was a little app that was installed on the 3DS. It was part of the 3DS app suite when you got it. And what it did was, it was only functional while you were at that Nintendo Zone location, but it would allow you to have access to exclusive content that you normally wouldn't have while you were at home, even if you brought it online. What you could do with it was, it would allow you to watch like exclusive videos, mostly like trailers for upcoming games, or it would allow you to watch, or it would give you, trivia questions and things like that. It would also allow full access to the eShop. So if you wanted to purchase something through the eShop, or download something through the eShop, or update your firmware and stuff, you could do that. It would allow you to do that. Later on, they added what was called a Spot Pass functionality to it, which is for anybody a Street Pass functionality to it, which is anybody who knows how they were trying to get through all their original Street Pass games. They knew that the only way that they could make progress with any of their games was if they were to basically interact with other 3DS users. If you happen to live out in the middle where there's not a lot of people, which most people do, and certainly not a lot of people are going to also have their own 3DSs and be walking around with them, then it's very possible that you may be unfortunate enough to never be able to make any progress in any of your Street Pass games, because there's just no one around for you to interact with, to give you progress in these games. And that was extremely unfortunate, but an unfortunate reality. What Nintendo put into those systems is they put in some type of queue, in that as part of giving you access to Nintendo Zone location, when you went into that location, you would also be able to have an automatic download through Street Pass of the last 6 people that use the system. It took at least a couple of days once the service was turned on. Trust me, I know from experience, I was there, before it actually started working, because obviously people had to show up at the hotspot. And in all honesty, in all the places I visited within like day 1 or day 2, I was the first person, and it gave me nobody. But once, a couple of weeks, a couple of months after the service was turned on, every time, there would be an incentive for you to go to like McDonald's, for example, and use your 3DS while there and having a cup of coffee. And also, they improved their coffee at around the same time. So this is not meant to be a thing for McDonald's, but I'm just saying that it just so happened that McDonald's did a lot of right things at the right time, at around the same time, basically around 2012. They improved their coffee, they had good deals on it, and they had the 3DS Wi-Fi access, so there was an incentive for people to go. But, so that would allow you to download it, then you could play Street Pass while you were there, and then when you were done, you would just, it was only a few minutes, obviously, needed to be connected, but that would be something that you would do. That functionality was also brought into, once Nintendo made it a deal with AT&T specifically, all the AT&T hotspots that were delivered, and there were a lot of companies that used AT&T hotspots. I remember finding an AT&T hotspot in like a Home Depot, and I remember finding an AT&T hotspot in a Best Buy. Of course, Best Buys would usually use AT&T hotspots. Of course, AT&T wireless stores, your AT&T cellular stores probably used AT&T hotspots, or used AT&T hotspots. My sister used to actually work at an AT&T store selling cell phones. And I remember telling her right after that service was turned, after Nintendo said that they had made a deal, I remember telling her that, I just want you to know, sis, that if you see any kids coming into the store with Nintendos that aren't buying anything, it's going to happen, and you have to let them do what they're doing, basically. You have to. Because AT&T's made a deal with Nintendo, and those kids are likely using the hotspot while they're waiting. So my sister got a heads up about that, because nobody told her. I mean, why would they? She only worked there. Why would they not tell her? But I was the one to give a heads up to my sister. By the way, if there's any kids coming in with Nintendos, let them use their Nintendos on the Wi-Fi, because they're actually, your AT&T made a deal with Nintendo. Barnes and Nobles also had them. In fact, famously, I remember, and there was an article I wrote about this back in the day when it happened, when I was with one of my friends who was a diehard Vita person. And we had both gone to Barnes and Noble to pick up some books and to have some coffee. And so we were sitting in the cafe, and he wanted to pull out his Vita to see if he can get it online to show me what games he was getting to look at. And he couldn't get on the Wi-Fi on his Vita for some reason. Maybe it was like, I don't know, there was something going on with the Wi-Fi where he just couldn't get on. So I popped on my 3DS and I checked it, and boom, I was in like 2 seconds. And I don't know, that was just one of the things. I'm certain it has to do with probably what the protocols were, and maybe they put a password on there. I know AT&T sometimes password protected their stuff. They allowed 3DS hardware to basically just get through that. And then there was some other stuff, like there was some stuff I really actually remember, like at one point, I'm fairly certain that McDonald's made a deal with like the Pokemon company. Whereas back in the day, you actually, if you wanted to use mystery boxes, you had to go to a physical location and use your while your game was loaded into your handheld, and basically get the mystery box while you were there. GameStop did this a lot back in the day. What they would do is they'd have a mystery box set up for like a month or something, and then you would go to GameStop, you turn on your thing, you'd say check area for mystery boxes, and you would find it. That's how you would get them. With the Nintendo Zone locations being added, that was just one extra functionality. And I remember McDonald's of all places. Could you try? I remember McDonald's of all places actually offering that functionality to deliver actually a legendary Pokemon for Gen 6. For like one of the Gen 6 legendaries, actually. I'm sorry, one of the Gen 6 mythicals. What am I saying, legendaries? One of the Gen 6 mythicals was actually offered. I think you got Hoopa, or at least at one point, that was like one of the distributed Pokemon was Hoopa. They might have redistributed through other methods, but one of the reasons I remember Hoopa so much. And later on, what they decided to do it was just easier for them to distribute like index cards with like download codes on them instead. They ended up going that route in the future. But for a brief time, they were using the Nintendo Zone locations to actually offer Pokemon mystery gifts as well. It was a fun time. And the unfortunate reality is that nobody's really doing that anymore. I kind of always equated it to like, and I always think about when it comes to Nintendo stuff, especially when it comes to Nintendo handheld stuff, I am such, I like to think about things in like a Pokemon, like from a Pokemon perspective or a Pokemon world perspective. And it always to me felt like, you're walking around the world and everything else. You're traveling around with your 3DS, with your game. And when you're in need of something like supplies or Pokemon or, where would you stop? You'd stop at like a Pokemon Center. Essentially, for at least a matter of a couple of years, with this Nintendo Zone, and of course, Nintendo New York also had this, by the way. I left out Nintendo New York. Nintendo New York absolutely had a Nintendo Zone Wi-Fi. Absolutely. Yeah, that was just a big deal. That was like the biggest deal. Was like you'd stop there and you could basically just refresh your street pass. And if you needed anything else, like a Pokemon or something, you could pick it up there, and then you could just go home, pick up a cup of coffee, go on your merry way. Now that doesn't really happen anymore. Everybody's home. Everybody's using even their handhelds. Everybody's using them at home on their Wi-Fis. And interactions are basically like going to be FaceTime, and probably in the future, within the next year or so, it's probably going to be everybody's going to be communicating through virtual reality or something. So, and nobody's going to be playing virtual reality out in the go because that might damage lenses and stuff. So, sunlight might damage lenses. So that was just my memories of them. Obviously, the Nintendo Switch, unfortunately, has no type of that functionality did not stay around. When the Nintendo Switch came out, it was pretty much the one of the big nails in the coffin for that type of service, because, of course, most people use the Nintendo Switches at home. It has no step counter, at least not a step counter that would be used from the system itself. Although it did have functionality with things like you could communicate with like the Pokeball Plus, which had a step counter in it, but that was only for limited functionality with certain applications that supported it. In that case, I think it was supported by Pokemon Let's Go games and Pokemon Sword and Shield. I don't remember if the Gen 4 remakes supported it, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, pretty much once we realized that that Street Pass functionality was gone, that step counter functionality was gone, was no longer part of the OS. That felt like a big, that was a hurt. But time goes on and you know, things change. And now everybody's, if they are going to places, it's because they're playing Pokemon Go. And if they're going to landmarks and stuff like that, it's because they need Pokestops and resources. So this kind of is continuing a little bit with Pokemon Go, but you don't need Wi-Fi hotspots for that sort of thing. You know, it's just using the cellular band and GPS and stuff on your smartphone. So hope you guys enjoyed this rambling video. Until next time, guys, my name is Maniac with GameAccess.net. Take care. Over and out.